Here we are. Good morning and happy Monday to all of my beautiful Facebook people, my friends, my community. This is it. This is the last day of September, which means I'm here to deliver to you the final chapter of the story, chapter 30. Again, I can't believe that I did the whole thing, but I did because I set a goal for myself, and this is really, really important to me. So we'll get to this kind of at the end, but I just really hope that y'all have enjoyed watching and maybe learning things about me that you didn't know. But most importantly, I hope that some part of my story, even if it was just the teeniest little piece, I don't really care, but I hope that some part helped you, inspired you, motivated you, whether it's to learn that you can get through stuff, you can create a life that you want for yourself. There's been a lot of messages in here, right? And I can't help it. I'm a little teacher. And so I hope that it's taught you something, that it's brought something to you. So this chapter, again, is the last one, and it's called The Story. And you'll see why. So the book's called The Story, and so is the chapter. So with that, I'm just going to give it to you. Chapter 30. As I have written the story, I have let many of my friends and close acquaintances know what I'm up to, right? I'm writing this book called The Story. And of course, I've shared it with people I don't really know that well also when the time's right. But I have shared, a lot that this is what I'm up to, this is what I'm doing. Obviously, my Facebook community and friends have seen what I'm up to, so it comes up quite a bit. And almost always, they tell me how amazing it is, or how cool they think it is that I've taken the time to watch this, right? And a lot of people will say that they want to write a book one day as well. I get this quite a bit. But more often than not, I get a response from people that is still really surprising to me. And it goes something like this. I'll say, yeah, I'm writing a book, or it'll come up and they'll go, oh, wow, good for you. And then there's always a long pause. And then something along the lines of this. I don't really have a good story. And even if I did, I don't think I would ever share it. Or, oh, that's so good. But I ain't ever telling my story. Nobody needs to hear that. And I'm always kind of like, what? It has been such a surprising response to get from people. And I really am always kind of, every time it still happens, I'm like, I don't know. I'm just kind of, oh, it still catches me off guard. Because of that, there's so many things to break down and sort of digest there. Every time I have heard something along those lines, my immediate response had been to say something like, oh, stop. You have an amazing story, and there's tons of people in the world that need to hear it, right? But after hearing this so many times, and this has been the most common answer, people have just told me over and over that they don't think they have a story to share. Their story's not good. They commend me. They think I'm doing something really great, but they almost always acknowledge that they don't think they've got a story and that no one would care about it anyway. So now, when I hear those types of responses, I kind of just say, interesting. Tell me more about that. Why do you think that? And I do it because I am genuinely curious. And then they'll tell me, and their answers are just varied on the spectrum. Some people are just shy. Some people are private. There's every answer in the world. And then I listen and then I say, well, it sounds like you just shared your story with me. So thank you. And then they almost never say anything back. I think this idea that even the smallest little bits are actually our stories. That's their story, and they shared it with me. And then they're kind of just surprised that I I call that out, like, right, well, you just shared your story with me, so clearly you do have a story and it should be shared. I want to pivot for a second. I believe that the entire world of self-help books, motivational material, how to live a better life stuff, we all know that whole world, right? I think it's really popular because every single person, and I mean every one of us, has something that gets us down. And if there's something that can kind of fix it or acknowledge or address it or help us through it, we go for it, right? That's why this is such a popular topic, the whole self-help thing. And we believe, and we're told over and over and over through different stimuli, that if we can just address it, whatever our thing is that we want some help with, address it or fix it or change it, it will be better, we will be better, and life will be better, right? Now, I'm not saying that this is a bad thing in any way. I'm not painting this in a negative light, or that the whole entire notion is wrong, because I do believe there are indeed gobs of topics when it comes to self-help and that whole world that, when discovered and explored and implemented, they really can truly change your life. My life's been changed by a lot of these ideas and topics and things, right? For the better. But for the most part, when we get to this point of needing some help and something happens where we finally kind of go after it, I imagine something bad has happened in a relationship, or you've lost someone, or you don't feel good about who you are. Something leads us to, again, this is how I imagine it, like going to Barnes and Noble or a bookstore, and we're just like, where's the book? What's the thing that can help us, right? That's the point that we sort of get to sometimes. And we end up finding a message or a strategy that more or less promises that it's going to help us with our thing. And we do what it says. And guess what? It typically actually works pretty well. The 5-second rule, power of vulnerability, everything Tony Robbins puts out, all these things, right? They do work if you do them. So we try it out for a few days, a few weeks, a few months, whatever it looks like. But almost always, something distracts us from our newfound mindset, right? Our strategy, our goodness that we've got going on, our goals, whatever it is, we hit a roadblock and we stop doing whatever it was that we started. Now, I know that this looks completely different for everybody, but this is sort of a general description of what happens in the world of self-help and motivation. And that's why it keeps going, because people still need the help. They still need the things, right? Now, by the time, though, that you have gone down this path a dozen times, 100 times, whatever it looks like for you, almost always it's more in our teens, our 20s, our 30s, right? We find that path maybe should have been just marked dead end. I guess a dead end. And because of that, because it didn't work, because we get knocked off, because we get discouraged, our attempts to even go down that path become fewer and fewer, right? I know that this has to somewhat be the case, because if it weren't, I don't believe for one moment that when I share that I'm writing a book called The Story, I would receive the answers from folks that I do. But I do receive those answers. And quite frankly, it sometimes has been very disheartening to see the level at which people think of themselves. It's not very high. It is shocking. People do not believe in themselves. They just don't. I think that we live in our heads a lot. But the number of people that I see and meet that don't see themselves the same way that I do is tragic. It is really, really hard for me to see sometimes. They don't think that they have a story. and they don't think that anybody would want to hear their story. So this is not a new thought at all. Every single person watching this is going to know this is true. Overwhelming evidence and research has determined that humans, like actual Homo sapiens, we as a species, us, we are born with an innate need for connection. Our brains are actually hardwired for it. I love Brene Brown's description of that in her TED Talk, The Power of Vulnerability. But we know it's true. We were not made to be alone. Like, we just weren't. Humans were made to be in a community, to have people. And connection for me doesn't just mean, your one partner or your little circle of friends. It means community. That's how we're intended to be. We're intended to be part of a community. One of my favorite modern day examples of just a no holds back community is when we watch little kids, like particularly around 3 or 4 years old. When we meet them, when we see them meeting new kiddos that they've never met before. And I mean, this just like warms my heart. I absolutely love it. You see a little kid and they're at a playground maybe, and they see another little kid and they just come together and they're best friends, right? There's embrace and there's connection and there's community and there's love, if you will. And they're best friends forever. And they play and they share, they laugh, they do all the things. And on the sidelines, there's just an endless chorus of, oh my gosh, look at that, right? We love it. We are so drawn to that. And not just because it's cute, but because I think we're like, wow, like that's beautiful right there. And then, especially when you've got a little feeler on your hands, like maybe a baby Darren was, we witness what happens when it comes time to say goodbye, right? Oh my word. I'm not sure there could be anything worse at that moment. There are tears. There is sadness. They do not want to be broken up, right? And nothing against our parents for saying this, which is, I know, led us to saying it. We just totally deflect from it, right? And we often hear some sort of thing come out of someone's mouth along the lines of like, oh, they're just tired, or they need a nap. And a host of other things, right? I know this is a strange example, but it's just one of the only ones that came to me where I could really portray my point. And my point is this: we need connection, and we want connection, and we see this so clearly when, two little kiddos meet for the first time on the playground. And we used to want it. I know that we did. Like, we used to demonstrate it all the time. So when is it that we changed our tune and got to a point as grown-ups where we think that we can go at it alone? That's what we think, that we can go at it alone. That if somebody knew us, I'm trying to get my hands in there, that would be embarrassing and that they wouldn't like us. To reiterate the most fundamental truth that I know I shared in the last chapter, but that I know in my life and in my heart, I believe that it has something to do with loving ourselves, right? But actually, I think that it has everything to do with loving ourselves. I knew that I had a story to tell. I know that I have a story to tell. And I know that every single person that hears this or reads this or even like just hears this idea, I know that they have a story too. And I also know that I used to be really, really scared to tell it for all kinds of fears, right? Especially the ones including judgment, didn't want to be judged, total fear of backlash, But I didn't want to tell it for a very, very long time. But by not sharing my story, how many of you that have watched these videos would not have received some sort of something from my story, which has in turn influenced your own story? I've heard from so many of you that every single time that telling this story got just a little difficult or a lot difficult, it's hard to dredge up some of this stuff, I would hear these comments and I would hear these stories from so many people about, wow, like you shared, and that has just helped me so much. And to say that that was fuel for me is just the understatement of the century. I mean, it's what kept me going. I've endured a lot in this life. And I'm only 29 years old. I just turned 29 last week. I'm a baby. I know it's just a running joke with people that I'm so young. But I do know that up to this point in my life, I've endured a lot. I've conquered a lot. I've lost a lot. I've gained a lot. But I've also learned a lot. And who ever could have imagined that the things that I've gone through were things that I went through so that one day I could share the story of overcoming them or learning something from them, and that experience could be shared with others in the form of a story so that it helps them in their journey, encourages them, motivates them. Like, who would have ever known that? Being hit around by my parents, being laughed at and rejected in school, thinking that I was going to hell because I worshiped a God that hated me. There's so many things that weren't part of this book, part of this story, that also I just can't believe I've endured sometimes. But when I share them later, the universe always seems to put someone in my path that needs to hear it. And it's this beautiful thing. I mean, it really is. That has just been the most powerful part of life for me so far. The fact that I know that I went through something so that I might be able to help somebody later that's going through the same thing. That is powerful. Who knew that my story held the potential for inspiration or motivation or connection? But that's the whole point of this book and this chapter, y'all. Our stories connect us. And we have got to share them. Obviously not in the way maybe that I've shared mine live right now, totally public, recorded videos, a whole, plan to make it a book kind of thing. No, it doesn't have to look like that at all. We just need to share it. So do it in your way. I mean, you're the only one who knows what that looks like. And whatever way that is, it's beautiful. When someone says, "How are you?" actually tell them. That's sharing your story. When someone asks for advice or needs an opinion, give the actual advice and opinion that comes to your heart based on your story. It doesn't just have to be, like, this is the biggest point, and I don't want this to be missed. It does not have to be some huge, big, grandiose thing that you've gone through and lived through kind of story that needs to be shared. It's just the story. It's your story. The one that exists right here, right now. Not the one that you're penning, not the one that you hope that you'll share someday, not the one that you're wrapping up or still going through, the one that's right now. That's the story that needs to be shared. And there are so many people that need to hear it. I can't even describe to you how many people need to hear your stories. I want to end by sharing a concept that a very wise, beautiful soul shared with me. He reminded me that we are never really quite there. and that there isn't a race to win per se. If I can achieve this, if I can learn this, if I can get this, then no, that's kind of made up, y'all. There is no plateau that we're going to get to. I mean, I know that we think there is. I find myself in this little, gerbil wheel all the time. If I can just do this and get to here, then everything will be great. That's not true. I mean, there are things that we can do to better our lives and help propel us to our vision of how we want our lives to go or goals that we want to achieve. But it's not a matter of acquiring something, learning something, doing something, whatever that thing is in our lives, that if we just had it, did it, felt it, learned it, then we would go here. It's not true. I mean, we can do all types of things to make our lives better, put us in better situations, but we don't actually ever arrive. When we arrive, when we get there, it means that we're dead, because it means that we have nothing else to learn, nothing else to gain, nowhere else to go. There is absolutely no secret answer to life. I used to think there is. There's absolutely no. If there's one at all that I've learned, it's to love yourself. That's the biggest secret I've ever learned. But there is no secret answer. Some solution that you just haven't found yet. And there isn't a single thing or single person who has the ability to just make everything better and easier for us. It turns out we have to struggle. We have to struggle through it just like everybody else, right? But that's the point. Everybody else is struggling through too. So why not share about it and be real with each other and genuine and authentic? The reason I wrote the story is so that I could just prove more or less that when we share with vulnerability and authenticity and unapologetically as ourselves, we get out of our heads and we get into our lives. So stop searching for any type of easy way out. The fix of being lonely or not sharing, I'm just going to keep it to myself, I'm too scared to share. And don't be led by the marred mistruth that others don't need to hear what you have to say. That type of life does not get us very far. Connect, be authentic, be unapologetically you, be vulnerable, love yourself, and share your story. Share you. I hope that you've learned from me that doing so can be a really beautiful thing. It really can. Ups and downs, good, bad, all of it. And that, my dear friends, kind of leaves me with this. You more or less now know my story, and I really hope that you liked it. My only question is, what's yours? So that's the story. That's the end of the story in the story. Thank you guys so much for going on this journey with me. I need to take a sip of water. Whew. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for allowing me the platform to share everything that I've shared. And whether you even got anything out of it or not, like, with all due respect, I don't really care. I'm thankful and grateful and appreciative of the fact that I got to share and that I got something out of it. This was huge for me. And again, thank you so much for everyone that helped me achieve that. Out of all 30 chapters so far, there was only one incident of someone not agreeing with me, having a very different opinion based on some of the things that I've brought up. And to have watched the response of my community to that person was just unbelievable. I was like, holy shit, I am loved. I am loved, I am loved, I am loved. Any day I'm having that's bad and I think I'm alone or whatever, just go back and read that little string of comments. I am loved. I know that you're loved too. Share your story, y'all. Again, the plan for this is that every chapter I've recorded is an actual chapter that will be in the book. It's going to sound and read a lot different because written word is just so different than spoken word. I'm going to take all of these videos and they're already on YouTube, most of them as a playlist, but very soon they're going to be on my personal website, darrenkentner.com, and there'll just be a link right there front and center that has every video embedded. So if you feel inclined to ever share this or, send people to a specific episode or topic that maybe was really helpful, they will all be right there. And then my goal, because I still want to get up really early in the morning and keep writing, my goal is to have the book written by the end of the year, which I know is lofty, but I also know that if I stick to it and tell people what I'm up to, they'll hold me to it and I can get it done. So, all right, it is a Monday and I have a lot to do. So thank y'all so much, so much. If you haven't contributed to my fundraiser and you're able to, I can't even tell you how much I would appreciate that. It's next week that I will be flying to New Jersey to Heroic Public Speaking so they can really help me take everything I've written, get it down to a great keynote, and start sort of sharing this message with as many people as I can. So that's it. Thank you so much. Would still love to hear from you. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, anything. I love all of you. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you soon.